City of Washington, D.C. sputters as federal workers stay home. Is it just the federal workers staying home, or is there some other stuff going on in Washington, D.C.? Let's jump on into it. Here we go. Washington's role as the U.S. capital makes it reliant on government workers for its economic success, and many are choosing to stay home, perhaps for good, leaving vast federal offices empty and the city struggling. So this is this is happening across cities all across the United States. But when you've got the federal government that just basically shoved the whole concept of, you all need to go home. We need to go inside our houses because that's what we're doing. Make sure you get the jab. When we did all of that for a few years and then realized, okay, yeah, a lot of folks out there can do their job working from home because we've proved it. We didn't have massive loss in productivity. Otherwise, people would be going, we lost this much. We need to go back to the office for that reason. We haven't had massive amounts of loss of productivity. I think it'll be a long time before we really understand the impacts of what we did by saying everybody who can go work from home. But this is one of those unintended consequences, which is people want to keep working from home, even federal office work. Could you imagine going into work in downtown, DC? It's like, no. People are pretty comfortable. From restaurants hosting federal lobbyists to world-class cultural centers, the city's fortunes have long been tied to the government employees who operate the machinery of the state. Now, more than 3 years after the COVID-19 pandemic forced the United States government to rely on telework, long-term remote work is having a painful consequence for the local economy. Washington's workers are coming into the office less than half what they were before the pandemic, according to Castle, which manages entry badges for 40,000 companies across the country. The D.C. office market is dying, said Chris LeBarton, director of market analytics at the real estate company, data company CoStar, told the AFP in an interview at the company's offices downtown. If you can't get the federal government back to Washington, D.C., even at 3 days a week, good luck, he said. That is what Amazon is struggling to get their workers back to, which is 3 days a week. Meta has already stated basically the same thing. 3 days a week, you guys are going to be back. And they're going to push for a fourth. And then, hey, we're having such a great time. You guys been here, coming in 4 days a week. Let's just go to 5. That pesky whole work from home thing on Friday. No, that's just not what we're doing. But now you've got government workers specifically in DC really rocking that boat because the government basically told everybody, go work from home. And so all government workers, with jobs that could do that, obviously, but there are so many now tech-driven jobs that you can do that. And what we're missing is that whole, creative, in-person, the off-the-cuff conversation. Maybe, younger folks, they need more in-person mentorship. Those are all kinds of things that I think we haven't really understood the impact on our business, on business development. Some companies have. They've just said, we're flat not doing the work from home thing. I was listening to Martha Stewart, and she was like, you can't get everything done in 3 days a week at the office. But, she'll work until she dies, right? That's just the kind of person she is. She loves her multiple ventures and businesses, and she'll just keep going and hanging out with Snoop Dogg and, doing their thing. Because of the rest of this largely is offshoots of that, talking about work from home, he added, waving at the city around him, economic engine falters. The economic engine falters. While many federal employees relish working from home, the impact on the city's commercial real estate sector, also hit by a toxic combination of high interest rates and tighter bank lending, has been severe, not only on commercial, on residential as well. you bump up interest rates like the federal government has done. Not even the federal government, the Federal Reserve, which is not a federal entity. That's what they did, right? Federal government occupies almost a quarter of commercial property in the downtown area. Historically, the economic engine of the city. The office of somebody told by email, sustained remote work following the COVID-19 pandemic has translated into lower office utilization and downtown commercial vacancy rates at record highs of close to 18%. So DC, even though, they've got the government as a built-in tenant, things are not going their direction. 18% vacancy rate. That's huge. It's just, but it's huge in a normal environment where we didn't have the coming out of the pandemic. But now around 20% for a city is not uncommon. It means 1 out of every 5 spaces is vacant. And then what that translates to is fewer businesses, attracting fewer people, less money to run all the things that a city needs to run. And so it's this ongoing doom loop, which is what it's been dubbed as. And it makes sense. It makes sense. So if you're a federal government employee and it doesn't sound like, vast majority of them are coming back into the office 5 days a week anytime soon. And, most occupancy rates were made based on, what we need to have the city, keep afloat. It was 5 days a week because that was the norm. There was never a consideration for, okay, yeah, we've been doing this a long time. Maybe we'll just try working from home. There's never been a situation where that was the case. Now we've had one shoved down our throats, and here we are. And, in cities where this was a major, major impact, oftentimes there's other stuff going on. Are there other things impacting the streets of DC? Absolutely. But you throw those on top of this, big one, which is the whole work from home impact. Yeah, you're going to see some major long-term impacts to how downtown office, space and it is operated. The city is forecast to lose close to $500 million in revenue over the next 3 years due to declines in property tax revenue from large office buildings driven by an enduring remote and hybrid work, according to the estimate from the Office of Washington D.C.'s financial officer. So all this commercial stuff in a downtown core works together. And when you just don't have the people going to utilize that space, when you don't have the businesses re-upping space, when you don't have subleases being taken over by companies that want to get in a little bit quicker than if they have to wait for, full build out or whatever. Maybe they're looking for some better terms. Maybe they don't have perfect credit. Yeah, we'll take the sublease. There's something in their history which allows them or prevents them from, just taking down a bunch of normal office space because there's plenty of that to go around, about 1 out of every 5 units, in fact, right? So in April, the White House's Office for Management and Budget called on federal agencies to substantially increase in-person work at federal offices while still using flexible operational policies as an important tool in talent recruitment and retention. If your business is competing against another business that allows their employees to work from home and you do not allow your employees to work from home, you are at a massive disadvantage from a competitive standpoint. Hey, my direct competitor letting his gals and guys work from home. So, and if you're an employee, you're thinking about that. All right, I can work from home from this company. Hey, maybe I'm making a little bit less, but I'm working from home. I'm still going to get about the same. A lot of that is going on right now in these marketplaces. But many federal workers argue that telework gives them an opportunity to support the neighborhoods where they live. Yes, it does, but not the downtown. And that's why the downtown is getting cleaned out in so many markets. Downtown San Francisco, some major issues. They've got the largest mall in San Francisco is in default and going back to its bank. And the bank is going to turn it over to a receiver. It's the biggest mall in San Fran. San Francisco Center. You've got some crazy stuff going on. But again, that has to do with some of the work from home, but also street conditions, meaning it's not safe for people to be going into a downtown San Fran and shopping. That's not happening. We're not saying that about Washington, D.C., but guaranteed there's some of that going on as well. Because street conditions in D.C., it's like a lot of big cities that have, got certain political leadership. They're not thriving in a world of just things going great, right? They're just not. Like Portland, like Seattle. There's a lot of criminal activity going on. Drugs are a big part of it. You got a lot of gang violence, all this stuff going on the regular. In San Fran, Mayor London Breed is trying to come up with a plan for the open air drug markets. And in the meantime, you got, just crazy stuff going on, wild stuff. It's not like, and we're talking about the government employees. They're spending money in their communities, but at home, not at the office, not downtown. It's not like I'm not going to lunch or spending money in my own community. I'm just not doing it in downtown D.C., said Angela, 45, who goes to the office for her government job in the city just once or twice a month. So you're basically just, with a job like that, you're just basically going into a check-in, right? All right, go check in, see your boss, see your coworkers, have that rah, feel-good moment. Everybody goes home, and people are just so happy to not be going back into the office. So Jason, who is also 45, still loves his job as a senior manager at a U.S. federal government agency in downtown Washington, but he doesn't love the idea of going back to the office full time. I don't think anybody does. People like to work from home. Just more flexibility. They don't have to commute. They don't have to spend money on parking. Just all kinds of different things. But they signed up for these jobs. Most of them signed up for these jobs when you still had to go into the office. And that's where I'm like, okay, you got a taste of your freedom, but that freedom wasn't guaranteed. Nobody said, hey, you're going to be able to work from home forever. You've just gotten used to it. Now that you like the idea, work from home forever. It's the greatest thing. It's the greatest thing. I think, here's my personal take. I think a lot of folks have figured out the 4-hour work week, which is, you can cram all of your responsibilities. You can cram all of your work tasks, if you really get after it, into a couple hours each day. And then you got like 6 hours, whatever. Just goof off and do your own thing. Pretend you're working. That's what I think is happening. And you know what? As long as people are getting their jobs done, that's kind of the way it is. But I think so much of our work days when we're at the office, being good boys and girls, really, towing that corporate line. I am really working towards making corporate XYZ company just a great long-term viability within our sector. I think there's a lot of nonsense like that that's just been thrown out the window. How can I get my job done so I can go hiking? How can I get my job done and do XYZ? Some jobs, they're performance driven. And okay, so you spent 2 hours working your job and you didn't do all the rest of that crazy stuff. All right, you got your job done. Great. Other jobs, just can't do that. Other jobs are more hourly, whatever, where you're like, okay, you got to be there. You got to put in the time. People are going to want to stay home, do their thing because they've gotten used to it. They've gotten comfortable working from home. Jason, remember at the beginning, people are like, I'm having to compete with all my family members and I'm having to exercise at home and it's horrible and terrible. And, all of a sudden, a lot of those complaints, you're not hearing about that because the employers are going 3 days a week. Come on, guys, let's go. And people are saying, no, we do not want to do that. And the downtown cores, which have already been struggling because they've been struggling throughout the pandemic, are now hurting even further because it looks like long-term, vacancy rates are going to be up around 20% for a long time till some of this stuff gets worked through, till the vacant stuff gets worked through. So Jason, who like Angela requested to be anonymous to discuss his work, works from home 4 days a week, a privilege also enjoyed by the small team he manages. For me, telework is a godsend, he said, adding that the quality of work has improved since his staff were forced to telework during the pandemic. I think people have spoken very loudly that they like telework and they'd like to continue to the maximum extent possible, said Jacqueline Simon, policy director at the American Federal Government Employees, the largest union representing federal and local government workers. The obligation of federal employees is to carry out the mission of their agency and serve the American public, not to patronize restaurants in downtown D.C., she told AFP. Yeah, but that's not the whole point. We're not forcing you to go back to work to patronize the restaurants. I mean, a little. Kinda. And when these employees aren't there, yeah, all the other trickle-down businesses, they don't do well. And so then long-term, there's less businesses to attract other businesses. There are less things to go into for downtown. And the whole rinse repeat, the whole cycle kind of, it fulfills itself. It's a cycle. It's that doom loop cycle. And so what's it going to take to work our way out of this? I don't know on the commercial real estate side of things, because it's not, this space was intended for one use, which is businesses to run their businesses out of, to have thousands of employees. And then when you take that point out of the conversation, you want to talk about just putting some low income housing in there, people who don't pay already moving into space that somebody else, you and I, the taxpayers, are going to have to pay for. Does that make a lot of sense? Good luck collecting, tax revenue from that, right? We're going to collect revenue from ourselves and pay ourselves. That's literally what we're doing, right? I mean, that's the alternative. That's the option. And you might say, well, we can make it into this. All right. But you got to have businesses to make this space into something that's going to be revenue producing, whether it's to the landlord, owner of the building, whomever, property manager, whatever that looks like. But instead, you got a lot of space, and you got a lot more space coming. You got a lot of space coming due that's got a lot of heavy debt on it. And you've got a lot of sublease space, and that's not DC. That's DC in addition to most major North American downtown cores. On top of most major American downtown cores are not run by Republicans. Don't know if you knew that or not, but that's the thing. So they inherently have a whole bunch of other stuff going on that also makes the downtown core not as viable as it used to be. So it's going to be entertaining to watch this unravel and reveal itself. Does 25% become the new norm for downtown office space? Does that become the new norm? Maybe it does. Maybe that is our new norm for a while, till we work out, okay, how are we going to repopulate these spaces in downtown? Not just DC, but everywhere else that companies are no longer taking the space down. What's that going to look like? I don't know. But to me, I find it pretty interesting. I find it like, okay, you did this and you didn't expect this consequence, but this is what you got. Now you got to deal with it. So I'm kind of finding the whole downtown core thing, it's really entertaining from watching a real estate thing, a real estate trend, because you've taken normal market dynamics, which is everybody works at an office, and so many of them work in downtown. And now you pull that out. What happens? Oh, struggle bus. This isn't going well. And it's not. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, because I'm going to be covering a lot more of these topics, because this is our reality. This is what we've got going on. Here we are. Here's your sign. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.